Hey guys and girls and horror movie fans, welcome back to Board Now's channel. I am Rachel McDonald. I am joining Keith again for another special October review. We're going to bring several of these to you over the month for the Halloween season, so I think that should be a lot of fun. We are reviewing the classic 90s film The Crucible, starring Daniel Day-Lewis and Winona Ryder. So this movie is set in the 1600s and is very loosely based on the Salem witch trials. So it's kind of part historical and part fictional. And I think it's more fictional than historical. It is set in Salem, and there are some names that were actually like people who were hung at the Salem witch trials. But this movie starts with a group of teenage girls just getting up to some mischief in the woods. I mean, it seems fairly innocent until some stuff happens, which we'll definitely discuss. But due to this dance in the woods, a couple of the girls fall ill, and the town, being a very 1600s puritanical town, starts to suspect witchcraft. And as the suspicions mount and the hysteria goes on and the town starts to panic, we end up with a very intense movie that kind of encompasses all of these themes. It is technically classed as a drama. I tend to view it more as a horror film because I find it absolutely terrifying. It feels like a bit of a folk horror. This was Keith's first time watching the film. I have seen it before. So we're going to start the discussion. I'm going to ask Keith, what did you think of the film?
I didn't like it. The Miller play, and
Yes,
he does the screenplay. And I think that right there hits on part of the problem. So Nicholas Heitner directs, and as far as I know, he directed a couple of Star Trek movies. I'm sure that's the same guy.
Yeah.
Seems to know. Yeah, I know the name. So, okay. But so I think what tends to happen a lot of times when you've got a movie based on a stage play or something from a stage, and you've got the people involved, so in this case you've got the playwright doing the script, I think there's a temptation to stick too much to the stage and what it was on stage, with it being very theatrical and sort of very stagey, so done in that sort of, we're doing grand speeches type thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of like heavy sort of drama and less of the visual sort of nature of sort of cinema in a way. And I think that's like certainly one of the main problems, because normally in this sort of film you would sort of build up to those moments and they would be more sparse, but it seems to do that, like those hysterical over the top moments from minute one. I mean not quite, but the thing in the woods with them dancing, I thought was a silly scene. It looked very silly. It came across very sort of cartoonish. Now, that there might just be a problem with this film where, because it's loosely based on kind of rituals from many years back, and it's sort of playing into those traditions, those ideas of like witches and characters of this sort, then it might be that's just something that dates the film. It didn't let up from minute one. I think for this sort of film to work, you have to build to those sorts of moments and not just like cram them in as much as you can. It's a bit like if, say, it was like a courtroom drama, which obviously you do get a trial later on in the film, but say it was like a courtroom drama, like if it works well, there would be a natural build. You would have the drama of the case and different things and them investigating, and then you would get the big set piece in court nearer the end of the film. But it's just like throughout the film, it's like people screaming hysterically, it's people chanting, like the whole melodrama just over, she's a devil type thing. Because it's got Francis Conroy in it who's a really good actress. Like, she's in 6 Feet Under, and I only mention this because, like, if you've seen her in that, like, her character does one hell of a scream, but like
Okay.
in that, it's sort of done. Like, it's not all the time. Like, it's those moments sort of stand out. But in this, she's just screaming pretty much all the time. So it's hysterical, it's melodramatic, it's very cheesy. It's hard to really like any of the characters or be that invested in them. I think the most interesting thing about the film for me is Winona Ryder turns out to be a bit of a villain in it, because, and I didn't see that coming, because I sort of expected, like, she's in love with the Daniel Day-Lewis character, and I thought there'd just be a natural romance with those two, with that, because, like, for a lot of the film, she's quite villainous, and you think it's going to play more into, well, we want to see the Daniel Day-Lewis, Winona Ryder sort of thing. But I mean, I'm assuming that happens in the play as well. So in a way, I sort of give the play more credit for that, because the play came first. But yeah, I think in a better movie, I could have, because obviously, like you, I like Daniel Day-Lewis. I also like Winona Ryder. So in a better movie, I might have given a damn about their relationship, but in this movie, I really didn't, because the movie was just so badly written and directed, and sort of, and it didn't really feel like, obviously it becomes important in their relationship, but like, for a lot of the movie, it didn't really feel that important. And I know this is something you've said about Daniel Day-Lewis as well, the actor, but I know you've said as well, in certain roles you find him a bit too self-important and sort of stuffy.
I do. Yeah.
And I would say that's this is one of these roles where I think he is taking himself too seriously.
Yeah.
And there's definitely scenes where he does some good acting and stuff, and like he commands the screen well, but there's other scenes where it is just a bit too preachy. And I think another problem is some of the dialogue in this film is terrible. You know, them sort of doing like dramatic speeches to each other about, you know, proclaiming their love, sort of thing. Like, I think she says, you know, I look for John Proctor with love in my heart at one point. There's terrible dialogue from like the judges when you get closer to the trial. Like, something like one of the judges, like the main one, he has a line like something like, we're going to get our hands in the swamp now, or we're going to get to the bottom of the swamp, or there's some line involving the swamp. Police Academy movies.
Oh God. Okay, that's random.
One of the judges who comes in at some point is played by the one who plays Commandant Assad in the Police Academy movies.
Okay.
And like, for anyone who's seen those movies, it's obviously a completely different character, but he's the judge in this who is like the most likable, who's like the most sort of gentle, sympathetic.
The Hale one, Reverend Hale.
Yeah, that guy. So but he's in Police Academy, where like a lot of the humor is obviously then this guy has like the mental capacity of like an 8-year-old, and yet he's supposed to be running this prison sort of thing, and that's where a lot of the humor comes from with. So, but I just found that distracting.
I was sitting there and I was like, I do not remember this movie being this cheesy. Like, I really didn't.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I had a memory of the movie being much more serious. So I was quite taken aback by how cheesy it was. Now, I didn't mind the cheese because I am a 90s girl at heart, and anything that comes out of the 90s, I do tend to go a bit softer on. But I do agree that the movie was a bit of a mess. Like, it definitely wasn't as good as I remember it being. I think I must have just been younger when I saw it and maybe
Yeah.
not as well versed in like movies. Maybe I can't remember the last time I watched it, but no, when I was watching it, I was like, this is really cheesy and really over the top in parts, which sometimes I have to admit I enjoyed. I did find the movie, I think, more effective than you did. Mass hysteria and religious superstition and the extremes that people go to in the names of religious superstition are two things that genuinely scare the shit out of me. Like, I had a hard time watching some of the hanging scenes in this movie because there was so much
Mm.
hysteria. And so that sort of pack mentality and the way that it can spread, and the kind of obsessive delusions that the girls are sharing in, I found quite unsettling. And I think that even though it doesn't do a great job of exploring the themes, I do like the themes of the puritanical societies back then, the hypocrisy of religion, the hypocrisy of people pretending to live in, as Puritans, but actually being full of like lust and envy and stuff like that. And I thought that was interesting. I also think it definitely explores a little bit of like the inequality between men and women. Like, I think Winona Ryder's character, Abigail, even though she is very clearly a villain and like slash antagonist, and she definitely, with her hysterics and the mass delusion that she and the girls are sharing, they definitely condemn innocent people. But I find I have a hard time feeling bad for John Proctor, even though he is obviously supposed to be like the hero of the
Mm.
piece or the upstanding citizen, because it's like, dude, you still had an affair with a teenage girl whom you called a child. So you know that what you were doing was wrong. And I said to Stephen, I turned to Stephen and I was like, it doesn't matter what century we're in, there is still adult men trying to take advantage of teenage girls. That is a theme that is in every single
Was
time period.
was she a
So,
teenager though?
yeah, Abigail's supposed to be 17.
Ah, okay, okay.
And
All right,
Proctor is
fair enough.
obviously in his 30s with teenage children. So,
Yeah.
yeah, through modern eyes was very hard to take, especially
Mm.
when they kept calling Abigail a whore and a harlot and talking about how this girl
Yeah,
seduced,
that's
so
very
and so.
old-fashioned, isn't
It's
it?
very old
Yeah.
fashioned. And I keep thinking, I'm like, you keep saying girl, this girl, shouldn't that tell you something? And I also found it interesting that towards the end of the movie, you see Abigail start to take the blame for a lot of what's happening. And while she's definitely an instigator, I'm not trying to say that she's innocent in any way, shape, or form.
Mm.
She's not the only girl who's doing this. Like, there's a whole gaggle of them who are engaging in this mass hysteria. And then there's the magistrates in town, and then there's the preachers who are obviously turning a blind eye to the fact that the girls are making shit up. So I think that trying to portray Abigail as just the outright villain, it's a lot more complicated than that, because she is still a girl. I thought the opening scene was fun because I love anything to do with witches. So I kind of like seeing like teenage girls and what they would have gotten up to back then, what would have been seen as like illicit and forbidden back in the 1600s. And
Mm.
I think that opening scene really establishes that Winona Ryder's character is different from the other girls. They're just dancing and having fun. She's actually like killing chickens and smearing blood on her face. It's like, girl, you're getting a little psycho here. Let's all just calm down. But I think it does a good job of that. Did you notice that one of the girls is played by the actress who plays Halfrek from Buffy?
Yeah, I did.
Did you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So it was that. And
yeah.
I
Because I
also
recognised the name at the start.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's
also
funny.
noticed
Yeah.
that at the beginning, they're calling out names of the men that they want to bewitch. I want to bewitch John Proctor. I want this person. One of the names they call out is Richard Wilkins. And I was like, oh dear.
Oh, okay. I didn't pick up
So
on
I
that.
thought,
Yeah, that's
so
a
I
funny
thought that was
tie-in.
funny. Yeah. So I think when I was watching this time around, I did enjoy the film, but I didn't like it definitely was not as good as I remember it being. Like, because I remember it being much better, so I must just have like a dim
Mhm.
memory of it. Because yeah, no, I was finding it hard to deal with at times. I was like, this is really cheesy. This dialogue is really bad. What's going on with this direction? What are we even doing here? Um, I think the fact that it was full on from the start though was kind of the point, because I think it was really trying to emphasize, you know, the religious superstition of these kind of backwards people when they first came to the new world, and how easily hysteria and religious superstition catches on. And I think they needed to show that from the beginning, to show how it snowballs into people actually being hanged. You know, modern audience, this just seems so stupid, like so stupid, you know, because we don't have that kind of religious, I mean, religion still at the moment, but we don't have that extreme religious superstition. So I think the movie was effective in showing that kind of hysteria and the way it builds, and pack mentality, you know, the way if one person believes it, then another person believes it, then another person, and it just kind of grows and grows.
If they were going to do it like that, then you would then have a let up in the middle, and then but it never really let up. It seemed to
That's
be all the
true.
way throughout the film.
That is true. It
Like,
doesn't give you a breather. You're right. It's
and
definitely interesting.
like maybe there's just the problem of it being a 90s film where it should have like, because you're talking about a you know a quite modern film in some
Mm.
ways. So like maybe they should have made more effort to like adapt it and make
Yeah.
it more relevant. Like, because I think I just felt that sense of it's a stage play and we're not really going to adapt it much for the screen, because like Nicholas Heitner, I've only seen his Star Trek movies, but he's a perfectly good director. His like
Mm.
direction is solid, and
Yeah.
like in some ways I just felt like either he just gave into it and went, okay, I'm gonna go full blown over the top, because a lot of
Mm.
like camera swirling around type movements,
Yeah.
or maybe he just wasn't allowed to direct. Like maybe he just like the stagey nature of it might have just taken over, and it's like, okay, we're gonna do it this way because we've got like. Because that's the thing. I'm sure if I saw this on stage, I would be really gripped and engrossed. But like as a movie, you have to adapt it and make it feel like a movie, more of a movie.
Well,
And
if I
and I don't think it did that really.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, the stage play takes place pretty much entirely inside the courthouse. It doesn't actually take place outside. So all the scenes you see
Okay.
outside of the courthouse are additional scenes. Yeah, the play is very much just in the courthouse, and it's all about the tensions running over and the people being brought in for trial. So yeah, I would actually like to find, like, maybe there's a copy up on YouTube or something. I would like to find like a version of the stage play and watch that and see what the differences are, and how much they change. Obviously, like I said, the scenes with the hangings, the scenes in the woods, those are all scenes that wouldn't have been in the play. And maybe it's just a matter of like a playwright writing a screenplay, because you know the two are very different. It's very different writing for stage and writing for screen, and maybe Arthur Miller just couldn't
Yeah.
translate that very well, because I do agree that like some of the movie, it was a bit choppy. It was a little bit kind of like these scenes aren't really connected. There's not like a natural flow between all the scenes. And I think it is saved by some of the performances. I think Winona's good, although her Irish accent kind of comes and goes at will, I have noticed.
That was
Definitely
going to
not.
be another comment. I think there's
Yeah.
some bad accents in this,
Oh yeah,
some
definitely.
wonky sort of accents.
Yeah, and
Um,
I mean, the Winona's usually good, but I don't think this is one of her better performances. She's definitely had
no,
much better performances than this. Daniel Day-Lewis, I think he's actually quite good in this. But again,
he's
he does.
solid.
Yeah, but he
Mhm.
does have that pretension. I don't like the fact that he's a
Yeah,
method
yeah,
actor, and he's an extreme
yeah,
method actor, like to the point where he's a
yeah.
complete arsehole. So sometimes I have problem with that. But I thought particularly at the climax when they're asking him to sign his name to the false confession, I thought that scene was quite effective. I mean, he's chewing the scenery a bit, but you definitely feel
Yeah,
the
yeah.
desperation in his voice of, you know, you have taken everything from me. This is all I have left is my name. Please don't make me how am I supposed to bring my sons up with my name, posted to the church wall? I felt for him in that moment. A little bit Nami, a little bit hammy, but I think he got the point across of why it was so important. Because, again, from a modern audience, you're watching it and you're like, man, just sign your name. Like, is it worth going to the gallows over, a fake confession? But, you do understand his motivations there. I mostly feel sorry for his wife. His wife just got caught in the crosshairs of this affair that he had with this girl. And she's completely innocent. I was all ready for Winona Ryder. I'm like, girl, just go all gone girl on his ass. Like, I am behind you 100% when it comes to him. But his wife being caught in the crossfire, I thought that was really sad. That was a really sad aspect of the movie, I thought. And I think she was like the only character that I really felt for.
Bruce Davison, who plays her father, he's a really good actor. He's in a lot. He's he liked one of my mentions of a film he was in on Instagram.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, because he's in a horror movie called The Manor, which came out, I think it was last year.
Okay.
Which is worth checking out. But yeah, because I put the review of it on Instagram and he liked the post, so that was cool. But yeah, he's one of those character actors.
Yes, I like him. I've seen him in a few things, and most things I see him in, he's actually quite good. I remember him. I think the first thing I ever saw him in was X-Men. He's in the very first X-Men film, and
okay,
he plays a senator, and but that was the first thing I ever saw him in. But I've seen him in a few other things, and he's always good. I thought he was pretty good in the role. Again, everyone I think in this movie is quite handy. They're definitely hamming it up. It's definitely, like you said, it's more like theatrical and a bit over the top in this movie. So I think he falls prey to that as well. As you were watching this, if you remember me when we reviewed Fear Street, saying that Fear Street 1666 definitely took cues from the Crucible. So I was just wondering if you like remembered that, like as you were watching.
I did. I mean,
see it. Yeah.
No, I did. That's why I said it's one we could review in the future.
Fear Street definitely took cues from this movie. Like you can definitely see the influence. That being said, I think Fear Street might have done it a little bit better, actually. So there we go.
Well, that's the thing. That's what I was going to say. I just feel like certain other films have done this subject better. Be of Chicago.
Yes.
Like, I think it's a solid movie. Like, as someone who's seen the stage play, musical, sorry, I think that's a pretty good screen version of it. But it's how in that you get all those really fast sort of edits of like people's feet. Like, those are the only moments where it feels a little bit too stagey sort of thing. So it just feels like left over.
It can be hard moving from stage to screen, similar to the way it can be hard moving a novel to the screen. There's so many things that you have to take into consideration about how movies work versus how plays work versus how novels work. And I think that in this case, getting the play right. I mean, sometimes getting the original writer can work. I mean, as an example, Gillian Flynn, who wrote the Gone Girl novel, also wrote the screenplay, and that worked fantastically.
Yeah, that's a good
but not everyone can do that. Not everyone can move from stage to screen seamlessly. And I think maybe The Crucible was just one of those missteps where it just didn't quite work as well. Maybe needed slightly better direction, a better writer. And because, the bones of the story are really good. And I think, the general idea of the story makes for an interesting concept and could be an interesting movie. But the execution was maybe a little bit wobbly. So what would you give this film? What would your rating be for The Crucible?
I'll give it 4 out of 10.
Fair enough.
This one was pretty bad for me.
Fair enough.
I don't think this will be one I rewatch.
No. You've seen it once. You've checked it out. That's enough now. Yeah, fair enough. I'm going to go slightly higher because I do enjoy this film. I do enjoy the cheesiness. I always like anything that has Winona Ryder because I'm a little bit biased when it comes to her. And I think that Daniel Day-Lewis, did a good job. Some of the scenes were effective for me. Like, I do find this film quite unsettling again because, as I mentioned, mass hysteria is definitely something that I find genuinely terrifying because you know, it just gets so out of control. So I'd probably go with a 6. A little bit above average because I do enjoy it, but nothing spectacular. I will probably rewatch it. I like a good cheesy 90s film. It's definitely my decade and the era that I enjoy a lot. But I don't think this film, it definitely was not as good as I remembered it being. And it was definitely cheesier and less well made than I remember it being. So I think it's brought up by having Winona Ryder and Daniel Day-Lewis give decent performances and the scenes that do affect me. But overall, it's definitely a cheesy and a bit of a clunky film. But I'm glad that we reviewed it. I think it was fun to rewatch it and just revisit a film I haven't seen for a while. But I'll go at 6 out of 10. So that's my rating for that one.
Okay. And I know obviously one of our followers, Alison, is
Mm,
like a big fan of the play or very familiar with the play. So I'm sure she's someone who will have comments on our review and
yeah.
like to chip in with what she thought about the film. So anyone who's seen it, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Obviously, we're going to be reviewing films throughout October. There's going to be special live streams, like horror watches on live streams. We're also going to do a top 10 TV
Halloween episodes.
Halloween
Halloween
themed
themed
TV
episodes.
episodes is the
Yep.
right way to put that. So if you want to promote your channel.
Guys, you can follow me, Rachel McDonald, video essays on TV shows and movies. My Tumblr and my Twitter accounts are also linked in my channel. And Keith usually puts a link in the description depending on how much we've agreed or disagreed. So I think there'll be a link this time around. And so come and follow me everywhere.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Keep it spooky. See you again soon. Bye.